Welcome to Dear Career. This is a space where you can ask us any question based on your career that you might not have had the chance to ask anybody else. I'm Julie.
And I'm Nikki. We are excited to be here today. We are both career coaches, and one of the questions that I got was from a recent college grad. They said to me, I don't understand all the advice out there, Julie. Like, I'm hearing one thing from AI, I'm hearing other things from my college career department. My parents are saying something else. Like, literally, who do I listen to? Because it feels like somebody tells me my resume is a page, somebody else says 2 pages. Like, I don't even know where to go to begin because everything's so contradictory. And I just sort of laughed when she told me that because I'm like, it's so true. Even as an expert in this field, I feel that way. So, what are your thoughts for her, Julie?
Yeah, I think, I mean, everyone's feeling it right now. There is so much noise out there. There's so much advice being thrown around on LinkedIn, on socials from parents, families, friends who've done it differently before. And I think that it's not that it's wrong. I think it's just aimed maybe at different people. I feel like maybe there's a graduate, for example, would have different need to hear different advice rather than a leadership, someone who's been in leadership for 25 years. Every ounce of advice that we receive or someone receives, it has to be taken on board through different ears, and it shouldn't follow the same rules. So yeah, absolutely, it's going to sound different, but it's understanding what's relevant to you, which is sometimes the tricky bit, but that's where we need to focus our attention on to start with.
So, like, they asked about the page numbers, and they're like, you're telling me it's okay for me to go on 2 pages. Everybody has told me to stay to 1 page as a recent grad. And they also found it interesting. I suggested they put their education last because in
Mm,
the person's school, they told them to put it first. Now, in this person's situation, they had some awesome internship experience and some really good professional experience as well
mm,
as community involvement where it justified going on to 2 pages. And so I had tried to explain to them everyone's situation is different. And in your situation, you have these awesome things to offer. It would be different with someone who didn't have these 3 internships. So,
mm.
and I also said there's no right or wrong answer, which is hard for folks to hear because somebody else may tell you something different. And at the end of the day, what's getting you the interview requests? Like, what's getting the phone calls? And like, did you do it professionally? I think that that can be hard because it's not black and white, and we want it to be.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's definitely not black and white. And again, I always say to my clients, and anyone who's watching this will probably roll their eyes at me, but I always think know your audience, know who you're speaking to, know what they want to hear. And when you understand the person who's reading your resume or the person you're trying to get this information to, then it helps you to know what goes on there first. So, whether it's on 1 or 2 pages, whatever you want your reader, your audience to see, the most important thing is that that is there in a snapshot for them at the top. And then your history and everything else that goes after, whether that goes on to 1 or 2, it stays on 1 or goes on to 2 pages, is less important than making sure that the impact that you bring is there from the beginning, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree.
I would totally agree. And I think it's a great opportunity for networking to ask those sort of questions of the folks maybe doing those jobs or hiring for them. And I don't mean the generic, like, should my resume be 1 or 2 pages? I mean, you actually put your best effort into that resume based
Yeah.
on the advice you got and you show it to them and you ask them, like, is this too long? Does this capture what you need? What would you remove? And get their feedback. That would be my advice to someone like that because those are great things that you can do through relationship building that are very easy for someone to take 2 seconds of their time and give that advice. Because exactly, like, how do you know until you know how the end user sees it? And no resume writer is hiring for like an entry level engineer position. We have great like industry experience and we kind of know the best practices, but
Yeah.
ultimately, each person's situation and hiring needs are different.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think a lot of people worry about the whole ATS thing, and if I have more than one page going through an application that's going to go through an ATS, is that going to go against me? Absolutely not. So long as, again, you have the right information on there, it's going to pull that information. But it just means that when your resume gets in front of the human eye, you want to make it as easy as possible for your reader to pick out exactly what they need to see. And having someone else look at it beforehand, whether it's someone, like you said, who you've networked with, who might be in that field, who can objectively have a look and see the information straight away, then you know that you're already on the right footing for your resume to be seen. It's just not necessarily the length or hearing about that sort of thing. It's more about that impact that you need to focus on from the start. But it's not just resumes. The advice, as you know, Nikki, is contradictory in absolutely everything, and it's really understanding who you're trying to speak to and getting rid of some of that noise that everyone else is trying to tell you about. Do this, you should do that. No, you need to know who you are speaking to, what they want to hear from you, and make sure that you are delivering that in the absolute best way that you possibly can.
It reminds me a lot, Julie, of we had a puppy last summer and he went to a trainer. And it really, like, the job search reminds me a lot of getting a puppy. Everybody had different advice for me. And of course, they were all
Mm-hmm.
extremely energetic or felt very strongly about their advice.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
This naughty puppy went to the trainer. She's the only voice I listen to because
Yeah.
she got me results. So I don't really care what anyone else has to say. So I would say if folks are facing a lot of contradictory advice, if they find it's necessary, that's when it can be helpful to pair with a professional that they trust and that
Mm-hmm.
they listen to their advice and they work through that process with that person. And it doesn't need to be some super expensive package. It could just be, can you look at my resume for like
Yeah.
these types of jobs and just give me the down and dirty advice so that I can just ignore the noise and focus on making progress. I also think there's some experts out there. Of course, you and I think, are great. Another one is like the book Resumes for Dummies. Like you can get
Yeah.
that at your local library and validate a lot of things of like, where does your gut like reaction land? Like, I like this. I agree with this.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is I love Sarah Johnston on LinkedIn. She's an
Yeah.
executive
Right.
resume writer. I send her like link to everyone and say, just follow her. Like so much of what I've learned is from her. Do you have any tips for folks that way to kind of help them find their dog trainer, so to speak, if it's feeling contradictory?
I love that. Um, I would say, going back to what we've said before, to if there is someone also that you follow on LinkedIn who is in your industry, in your area that you're trying to get into, or has, maybe posted a job that you had seen in the past, for example, but weren't ready to apply for at that particular time, maybe reach out to them and say, look, I'm looking at applying for X, Y, and Z position, or I'm interested in getting into this field, or would you mind? I've got a resume which I'm putting together at the moment. Would you mind, telling me what your top three tips are in terms of what you would look to see in a resume at this stage? Or what you would advise someone else that I might speak to, because they may know someone else who's a professional in that field as well. Not all the time, because obviously everyone is busy, but if it's someone that you've trusted, you've followed for quite some time, then I think it's a good way to network, to reach out to someone who is a professional in that field and knows what they're looking for.
Okay, I love that advice because you're not asking them to look at their resume and proofread it and go through it line by line, which is sort of what my previous advice sounded like. You are so correct that, like, don't waste their time with that. You can have a resume reviewer do that. Asking for the three things they most need to see really follows what I'm constantly preaching. Learn to think like the hiring manager, learn
Exactly.
for their needs. And once you do that, you're so right. The relationships build better and you get so much better at how you go about your job search. It's excellent advice.
Yeah, and like you say, learn to think like the hiring manager, but like the hiring manager who is going to hire you specifically for the type of role that you are applying. There isn't really much point in speaking to a hiring manager who is looking or who hires for an entirely different industry because they're going to be looking for different things on the resume. So try to make sure that it's as relevant to your industry as possible, and go from there. And as you said, ask a professional as well who is in the field of writing resumes, who has experience in lots of different industries. Most people will offer a 15-minute advisory session or discovery call. So you can reach out to them and see if they can pick out, the type of job. It could be a fun thing. What type of job am I applying for with this resume? And if they can't help you, then it may be that you need to look at it with fresh eyes again.
I like that. I think as we wrap up for this particular question, my advice to folks in this situation is accept that it will be contradictory for a variety of reasons and focus on the areas that you can control, which are learning what their needs are the most and
Yeah.
focus time and attention there. And I sometimes find that folks use the contradictory stuff almost as an excuse
Yeah.
like not get their search going, to not do their networking. They stay stuck in the confusion and contradictions versus just moving forward and knowing that like it's a marathon and you just each step gets you that cl much closer. So any other final comments you'd want to add, Julie?
No, I think that is absolutely true. The fact that you said about how people use this sometimes as an excuse to stay stuck. Sometimes we don't even realize that we are doing that. And so understanding when we are choosing to stay stuck or using that as an excuse as opposed to recognizing it and moving forward as well. So I think that's something to really bring home as well. So I think that's it for this question. And yeah, I look forward to discussing it in the next one. If you've got any more questions, please do send them through to us. We're going to pop our details in the link below. And if you've got anything else to add, Nikki.
No, please send us the hard questions. We'll give you as best case answers as we can, and we'll be real with you. So please send them our way. You can reach us on our socials, LinkedIn, as well as all of the details are in the notes. So thank you so much. See you later, Julie.
See you.